12. One concept that is a constant source of confusion chiefly because it has been imported into our circumstances from circumstances that are entirely different is the concept of an opposition. What exactly is an opposition in the post-totalitarian system? In democratic societies with a traditional parliamentary system of government, political opposition is understood as a political force on the level of actual power, most frequently a party or coalition of parties, which is not a part of the government. It offers an alternative political program, it has ambitions to govern, and it is recognized and respected by the government in power as a natural element in the political life of the country. It seeks to spread its influence by political means, and competes for power on the basis of agreed-upon legal regulations. In addition to this form of opposition, there exists the phenomenon of the extra-parliamentary opposition, which again consists of forces organized more or less on the level of actual power, but which operate outside the rules created by the system, and which employ different means than are usual within that framework. In classical dictatorships, the term opposition is understood to mean the political forces which have also come out with an alternative political program. They operate either legally or on the outer limits of legality, but in any case they cannot compete for power within the limits of some agreed-upon regulations. Or the term opposition may be applied to forces preparing for a violent confrontation with the ruling power, or who feel themselves to be in this state of confrontation already, such as various guerrilla groups or liberation movements. An opposition in the post-totalitarian system does not exist in any of these senses. In what way, then, can the term be used? 1. Occasionally the term opposition is applied, mainly by Western journalists, to persons or groups inside the power structure who find themselves in a state of hidden conflict with the highest authorities. The reasons for this conflict may be certain differences, not very sharp differences, naturally, of a conceptual nature, but more frequently it is quite simply a longing for power or a personal antipathy to others who represent that power. 2. Opposition here can also be understood as everything that does or can have an indirect political effect in the sense already mentioned, that is, everything the post-totalitarian system feels threatened by, which in fact means everything it is threatened by. In this sense, the opposition is every attempt to live within the truth, from the greengrocer's refusal to put the slogan in his window to a freely written poem. In other words, everything in which the genuine aims of life go beyond the limits placed on them by the aims of the system. 3. More frequently, however, the opposition is usually understood, again, largely by Western journalists, as groups of people who make public their nonconformist stances and critical opinions, who make no secret of their independent thinking and who, to a greater or lesser degree, consider themselves a political force. In this sense, the notion of an opposition more or less overlaps with the notion of dissent, although, of course, there are great differences in the degree to which that label is accepted or rejected. It depends not only on the extent to which these people understand their power as a directly political force, and on whether they have ambitions to participate in actual power, but also on how each of them understands the notion of an opposition. Again, here is an example. In its original declaration, Charter 77 emphasized that it was not an opposition because it had no intention of presenting an alternative political program. It sees its mission as something quite different, for it has not presented such programs. In fact, if the presenting of an alternative program defines the nature of an opposition in post-totalitarian states, then the Charter cannot be considered an opposition. The Czechoslovak government, however, has considered Charter 77 as an expressly oppositional association from the very beginning, and has treated it accordingly. This means that the government, and this is only natural, understands the term opposition more or less as I defined it in point 2, that is, as everything that manages to avoid total manipulation and which therefore denies the principle that the system has an absolute claim on the individual. If we accept this definition of opposition, then of course we must, along with the government, consider the Charter a genuine opposition, because it represents a serious challenge to the integrity of post-totalitarian power, founded as it is on the universality of living with a lie. It is a different matter, however, When we look at the extent to which individual signatories of Charter 77 think of themselves as an opposition, my impression is that most base their understanding of the term opposition on the traditional meaning of the word as it became established in democratic societies, or in classical dictatorships. Therefore, they understand opposition, even in Czechoslovakia, as a politically defined force which, although it does not operate on the level of actual power, and even less within the framework of certain rules respected by the government, would still not reject the opportunity to participate in actual power because it has, in a sense, an alternative political program whose proponents are prepared to accept direct political responsibility for it. Given this notion of an opposition, some Chartists, the great majority, do not see themselves in this way. Others, a minority, do, even though they fully respect the fact that there is no room within Charter 77 for oppositional activity in this sense. At the same time, however, perhaps every Chartist is familiar enough with the specific nature of conditions in the post-totalitarian system to realize that it is not only the struggle for human rights that has its own peculiar political power, but incomparably more innocent activities as well, and therefore they can be understood as an aspect of opposition. No Chartist can really object to being considered an opposition in this sense. There is another circumstance, however, that considerably complicates matters. For many decades, the power-ruling society in the Soviet bloc has used the label opposition as the blackest of indictments, as synonymous with the word enemy. To brand someone a member of the opposition is tantamount to saying he is trying to overthrow the government and put an end to socialism, naturally in the pay of the imperialists. There have been times when this label led straight to the gallows, and of course this does not encourage people to apply the same label to themselves. Moreover, it is only a word, and what is actually done is more important than how it is labeled. The final reason why many reject such a term is because there is something negative about the notion of an opposition. People who so define themselves do so in relation to a prior position. In other words, they relate themselves specifically to the power that rules society and through it, define themselves, deriving their own position from the position of the regime. For people who have simply decided to live within the truth, to say aloud what they think, to express their solidarity with their fellow citizens, to create as they want and simply to live in harmony with their better self, it is naturally disagreeable to feel required to define their own original and positive position negatively, in terms of something else, and to think of themselves primarily as people who are against something, not simply as people who are what they are. Obviously, the only way to avoid misunderstanding is to say clearly, before one starts using them, in what sense the terms opposition and member of the opposition are being used and how they are in fact to be understood in our circumstances.